ask you a little later about some of your writings that worked in favor of women. But how did you, talking about your judicial career, how did you then become a judge? First the Court of Appeals, then the Supreme Court, and then we'll talk about the International Commission. But share that story with us.
When I was still at the School of Law, but after some time I became very restless because I was doing the same thing every other day. Of course, I was into research, which is quite interesting, but I still remained a teacher. And I remember taking off a sabbatical. And I think in a way I had started getting wary of faculty politics, even at the School of Law. I got a sabbatical, and I went to Copenhagen at the Institute of Human Rights in Copenhagen, and I did a lot of work on children's rights. But while I was there, I got a call from somebody at Makerere University saying that I should go home and run for Deputy Vice Chancellor. Now, so you do realize that actually my career, I don't move straight from academia into the judiciary. Yes. I moved from academia. It's a long story. We won't have time to go too much through it, but I moved from academia into management of higher education. And I think one of the privileges or opportunities, I can say, I think my becoming a Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs, and then even acting as Vice Chancellor made me visible at the national level. In fact, I remember when I was struggling in terms of do I really want to be an administrator? Do I really want to go into management? I remember my husband telling me, go for it. If we get it, well and good. If we don't, you'll have become visible. I've never forgotten those statements. And that statement, and even when I remind him today, he doesn't remember, but I kept on telling him, Paul, you told me that it would make me visible. And indeed, it made me visible at national level, because Makerere, where I was, is the oldest university actually in East Africa, the oldest university in Uganda, and the most prominent even at that time. And because I was Deputy Vice Chancellor, and then even acted as Vice Chancellor, I became actually visible. And I remember when I was appointed to the Court of Appeal, Constitutional Court, the newspapers actually said, Museveni, that's the president, appoints so many judges, and Makerere's Deputy Vice Chancellor is on the list. So indeed, it is going into management of higher education, which made me that visible. And let me
stop you there for 1 second. And you were the first woman to hold both of those positions, right?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Go ahead. Yes. I just wanted to make sure everyone understood that you were the first in those positions.
Yes, I was the first woman to be a Deputy Vice Chancellor for Makerere, and yet Makerere was started in 1926, I think. And here in the 2004, this was the first time that it had a Deputy Vice Chancellor who was a woman. And then I acted as Vice Chancellor, but when they advertised for Vice Chancellorship, I didn't run. But anyway, even when I was there, after some time, I got tired of the dark side of university politics. But having become visible, I actually got a call from the then chairperson of the Judicial Service Commission. This is a constitutional body which recommends people to be appointed as judges. And of course, the recommendation goes to the president. The president picks those he we would want to appoint, and then you go through Parliament for approval. So it was when I had even completed acting as Vice Chancellor and decided to go back to the Deputy Vice Chancellor. And the reason why I enjoyed being a Deputy Vice Chancellor was because I was in charge of academic affairs, quality assurance, and so on. And I loved that. And then that's when I got this call. And yes, I went for it. And the wonderful thing is, I was, the chairperson, I had a meeting with him, and because they have that authority to search for people as well as to advertise. So when they advertised, they had already talked to me, asking me whether I was interested. What I recall though, is that the first time they had approached me, because this wasn't the first time I had been approached, what was being given to me was to go to the High Court. But I went to the chairperson and talked to him, and I said, I sort of think that going to the High Court would not be the way to go. Within the academia, I've gone to the very top as a professor of law. And within management, I've gone as high as even being a vice chancellor. So to go to the judiciary and I start as a high court judge would not be fair to myself. I said that. And of course, I really struggled wondering, would they think I'm this vanity? But then I said, well, in any case, even if they gave me high court, I won't go. So that's how I ended up saying no to the High Court. And then after some time now, they call me and say, okay. So I put in my application for Court of Appeal, Constitutional Court. But the other thing is, our Constitution allows a jurist to start at appellate level. And I remember when I went to Parliament, one of the parliamentarians asked me, do you really think you can go to the Court of Appeal when you've never been a grade 1 magistrate? You've never been a High Court judge? And my answer was, members, honorable members, look at this particular provision of the Constitution. It talks about a jurist joining at Court of Appeal level. And a jurist is a renowned scholar. So I said, and I have published widely and so on and so forth. So now I started at the constitutional level, Constitutional Court, stroke Court of Appeal.
Yeah, and so there are several lessons in this, but I want to talk about what your husband told you. You didn't know whether you were going to get the position, but you would be visible. And also how you said no, because you knew within yourself what you were capable of, what your life had been. So just speak to that for all of us, how important it is that sometimes you may take a position so you get visibility, because you never know where it's going to lead.
Yes.
And also that you knew that going on the High Court, you would be better suited for the Court of Appeals, and you had the strength and you looked into yourself and knew, no, that's not what I wanted, and you waited. Can you talk about that kind of decision, those decisions you made?
I think sometimes you have to be strong enough to say, I would rather not have it if it's not what I want, and remain where I am. I think for me, that was the lesson, that yes, I really wanted to move away from management in higher education. I sort of had already had enough of it. I had started becoming restless again. But then I knew that I don't want to say deserved, but I think indeed, as I explained, I was saying, really look how far I've gone in this, area. So how can I go backwards? For me, that would be going backwards. But I think what it says is that you must have self-worth. and be confident of yourself. And I think it's almost saying, I define who I am. Yes, I know, I'm not saying I live in an island, but do you know who you are? I think we should always know what we are, who we are, and what we are capable of. And even if I was going into an area where I had no experience, I think the question was looking at how far I had come within the university, whether academia or management, and say, if I did it at an earlier age when I was younger, why would I not do it now? And another lesson for me I'd learned is that wherever you are, you can actually carry that experience over into your next career. However different the career is, what you learn in a particular space can actually be taken over. So I think it's confidence in yourself and knowing that saying no and not getting it is not the end of the world. If you don't feel you want to go that way, say no and move, wait for something else.
Yeah, that story you told too in the Court of Appeals interview reminds me of my story, because when I I was invited to apply to serve on the U.S. District Court in Chicago, Northern District of Illinois. And at the time, I was 35. I had only been in practice 10 years, and a question was asked of me, of one of the committees, that you will be young, you will be the first Black woman, a woman, and you'll be Black. How do you think the lawyers will treat you? And I said, well, I've been Black and I've been a woman my whole life. And of course, age, that too will change. But I have tried the cases, I've done what I needed to do. And it's that confidence. That was a beautiful answer you gave, believing in yourself and knowing what you're capable of doing and making strategic choices.
Strategic choices indeed.
So you ended up on the Court of Appeals, and how was that experience, and how did you get along with your brother? And you were among the first women in that position too, right?
No, the Court of Appeal had other women, because we have women who we call career judicial officers, women who had started as grade 1 magistrates, for example, climbed the ladder. So when I joined the Court of Appeal, we were 3 women. I think I think the court had 11, is it 11 or 13? I don't remember, but we were 3 women on that court. And there had been others on that court before us. But what was perhaps different was that I was coming from the academia. I was the first woman to go to the Court of Appeal exclusively on the basis of scholarship. Of course, we had some, in fact, I moved with a lady who at one stage was some had practiced, were advocates, were at the bar, and so on and so forth. But I was the first woman to be moved from academia because I had never appeared in a court of law as an advocate. So I think that was, that was the difference. But then what I realized though is that as an academic, you necessarily need to be very analytical. So I was possessed of a very analytical mind. And I think that helped me in that transition from academia to judiciary was made that much easier, because in any case at the appellate court, you really need to be analytical because you are looking at other people's judgments, people who you certainly, respect a lot, and many of them have been at the job for a long time. But an analytical mind helps you review their decisions and come up with what you think is the right way to go, whether you uphold or reverse what they had done. So I think that was my experience, that the analytical mind helped me, but also going back to the other three experiences of Women's Law Center, Jurisprudence of Equality Project, my doctoral studies, I think helped me interrogate not just the law, but the decisions of other judicial officers, and even looking at a particular precedent and sort of saying, this is not a good one. How can I move away from this? But of course, you remember the Court of Appeal is bound by the decisions of the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. And I remember there was a particular judgment which really, I thought I wanted to go a particular way. And I went to the Deputy Chief Justice then, because the Deputy Chief Justice presides over the Court of Appeal. And I said, but this cannot be correct. And then he said to me, well, there is a Supreme Court judgment which says this is the correct position. And as you know, we are bound by the decisions of the Supreme Court. And I remember saying with tongue in cheek, I said, that day I go to the Supreme Court, I would change this. But actually, I was just joking because I didn't know that I won't stay at the Court of Appeal for such a short time. And actually, when I went to the Supreme Court, right, that decision is no longer, the decision of the Supreme Court so many years ago is not the decision. No, I said, this is not right.
This is not right. And on the Supreme Court, you had the power to change it.
I had the power of the judicial pen at the Supreme Court. Yeah.
Well, that's one way to change precedent, get on the Supreme Court. So you served there very, very successfully, and you ultimately embraced that international commission of judges. Could you speak to that and the Seychelles assignment?
Yeah, the International Committee of Juris,
yes,
is actually not even a court as such. The International Commission of Juris is a group of jurists, some of them judges, some of them legal academics and so on and so forth, who look out for independence of the judiciary, so it's an international NGO, but it's not even a court. But we speak out when we see injustice across the world, because, as I said, it has judges, it has legal scholars from all over the world. But of course, what is very, very interesting about the ICJ is that it takes you, for example, to conferences, of course, sometimes virtual, but sometimes you are even sent to go when there is trouble in the judiciary outside your nation, you go there as their ambassador to see what you can, as a group you can put right. And I think, and certainly, there's also the African equivalent of that, which is the African Jurists and Judges Forum. And I'm also on it. And I think both ICJ and African Jurists, Judges and Jurists Forum do go out also when they feel that a particular judge is being, is not being treated well in a particular jurisdiction. Of course, we have to be very careful, because sometimes you don't know what the inside story is. So it sort of gives you a great chance, opportunity, privilege to meet people who are also interested in what you are interested in, independence of the judiciary, but also independence of individual judges.
And did that association with both of those organizations lead to your appointment in Seychelles?
Yes, because one of the judges at the Seychelles Court of Appeal, was very involved in the African Judges and Jurists Forum. But what happened is at the Court of Appeal of Seychelles, I was sought out and asked whether I would want to go and serve on the Court of Appeal. And one of the reasons why I said yes was I just wanted to do something different, because the Seychelles is a civil law jurisdiction. Although, when you get to it, you realize that there isn't as much difference as is touted to be, but still they are really a civil law jurisdiction. We are a common law jurisdiction. So the reason why I was interested was I wanted to learn how the other side of the world handles disputes, and it's been an exciting journey. And so I was sought out. I'm a non-resident justice of the Court of Appeal. And for them, the Court of Appeal is the highest court.
So did you have to give up your position on the Supreme Court to take this Court of Appeal position in Seychelles?
No, because in the Seychelles, what they call a non-resident judge. So I go there only when there are cases, and usually they have 2 sessions in a year, 3 sessions in a year. I go for 2 weeks, I do the work, I come back. So, and that is also why I said yes. Because if it had been to go there full time, I would not have accepted. I want to be remembered as a very principled woman who sometimes took decisions that perhaps led to her not getting to the next level.